Hello and welcome. Today I'll be discussing the topic of abortion, using opinions from opposite sides of the argument as well as an analysis in my own opinion. Now, if we are to go anywhere, we must first discuss what is the definition of abortion. Well, according to the Oxford Dictionary, it is, quote, the deliberate termination of a human pregnancy, most often performed during the first 28 weeks of pregnancy, end quote. Now, if we are to discuss any political topic, we must go to the media as a source, especially for this presentation, because the media is what rules modern-day America. It is a main contributor to the American democracy, as it is kind of hard to have a democracy with free-thinking individuals if you cannot have a free expressing media. Now, most entertainment media and popular media is liberal in thinking. So, for this presentation, we will mostly be using articles as a source because they are less biased in their approach to certain topics, such as this. Now, what is the government run by? Well, you might say politicians or the president or the three branches of government, but if you are to look into what affects each individual American's life, then you would find interest groups are a main contributor to American society and how the government and its laws affect the individual. Interest groups are essentially these groups or organizations of people that are lobbying through the use of lobbyists in government for a specific need that they have, that they want the government to sort of go through with legislation that is favorable to them. In the case of abortion, there are many interest groups on both sides who have their lobbyists in government constantly pressuring politicians to enact their legislation to succeed in their goals. Now, interest groups are pretty much only allowed to exist because of this theory called pluralism, which basically allows that all interests should be freely debated in government and that each interest group is allowed to basically fight with all the other interest groups for attention, sort of like children with parents. Now, nowadays, because of the media and the in my opinion, excessive use of interest groups in modern day society, people don't necessarily form their own opinions anymore and just follow whatever news channel they watch or whatever sort of social group or political party they belong to. Now, with the media out of the way, let us discuss the generalization of the Democratic approach to this argument, or the point of view from Democrats. Now, before that, my personal opinion is I believe that the right to an abortion is equivalent to a license to kill. But one of the foundational beliefs of pro-choice advocates was that a fetus is not a human, but a mere extension of the mother's body. And thus, an abortion is no different than having a tooth removed, according to them, or according to choiceaz.com. However, that argument is quite outdated since the advancement of science and technology, since those arguments formed, have sort of proved that it is an indisputable fact that a fetus is in fact a human. So they have shifted their argument to the definition of a human. And choiceaz.com says, quote, just being a human no longer entitles you to live, end quote. Now, another pro-choice argument is that abortion is a human right. And I have a nice quote here from the Human Rights Watch, a rather liberal newspaper, that says, quote, access to safe, legal abortion is a matter of human rights. Authoritative interpretations of international human rights law establish that denying women, girls, and other pregnant people access to abortion is a form of discrimination and jeopardizes a range of human rights, end quote. Now, that is from the Human Rights Watch. Now, the general Republican consensus on the topic of abortion is that abortion is murder. And that sort of balances upon the fact that they believe that a fetus is a human, which it is, and science has proved that. There is a quote from Ross Douthat, an opinion columnist in the New York Times, in his article called The Case Against Abortion, says, quote, at the core of our legal system, you will find a promise that human beings should be protected from lethal violence, end quote. So, now that I have gotten that out of the way, it should also be noted that Republicans over time, or in recent years, have moderated their approach to abortion, and this moderation is meant to soften criticism received by your faction while simultaneously attempting to maintain a flow of supporters from your voters. This is a type of cooperation and is more and more common used among Republicans. Now, I do believe that in order to save the mother's life, you need to do an abortion, that it should be allowed, in order to save a mother's life. I'm not 100% anti the practice, because I do believe it is necessary in some situations. Now, this presentation covers the media and general opinions on each side of the debate, with my opinion sort of in there as well. But we do need to reiterate the importance of the media, because it is important pretty much for every political topic of our time. And the media is being increasingly polarized as time goes on. So the farther we go into the future, the more it seems it is projected that a Republican news channel will become more and more right-leaning, and a more Democratic channel, like say CNN, will become more and more left-leaning as time goes on. This is not good, because this increased polarization makes it so that it essentially eliminates the value of the equal time rule and the right to rebuttal used by politicians, especially, and increased lobbying by interest groups will also further polarize society by basically making the entire country of the United States an us versus them scenario. And all these interest groups influence politicians by, quote, like going public, which is essentially where they rally support from their followers in the interest group and pit them against the politician, or threaten to, in order to pressure the politicians to support their own legislation, which will then lead to the weakening of the opposing interest groups. So basically, politics is just one big battlefield. Now, taking everything into account, political polarization is extremely and increasingly rampant in society, especially when it comes to the subject of abortion. So, in summary, Democrats seem to be more entrenched in their thinking, and they are more sort of steadfast. They believe that abortion should be allowed, it is a human right, and that it is necessary for women. And Republicans seem to be more moderate in their thinking. They believe that lenience should be applied, or at least they increasingly say they do. But their opinions, not even just 5 years ago, was that they're basically 100% pro-choice. I mean, pro-life, sorry. The Republicans were 100% pro-life. But because of this increased moderation, they're sort of changing that perspective, or making their supporters believe that they're changing their perspective from abortion is murder to abortion is like kind of murder. And they seem to be increasingly moving away from previous campaign promises, which I believe would reduce the amount of respect that they're getting from their constituents and voters, making it harder for them to be reelected. So that is my sort of quick synopsis on abortion, a quick discourse on the two opinions, or the two major opinions for both sides, as well as mine. Thank you. Thank you very much for listening.